Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to another edition of Globespan Talks here this evening. My name is Richard Rambaran and I will be your moderator this evening. It certainly gives me great pleasure to introduce and host a very competent panel here this evening of two distinguished gentlemen within Guyana. The first I would like to introduce is, of course, no stranger to the public. I is the Honorable Bishop Edge Hill, is the Minister of Public Infrastructure in Guyana, and also, of course, naturally a Member of Parliament. Bishop Edge Hill, thank you for joining us this evening.
Well, good evening, sir, and I'm happy to be with you. Just a slight correction, I'm not the Minister of Public Infrastructure, I'm the Minister of Public Works. But we are certainly happy to share with you this program and the information which can help our people both locally as well as those in the diaspora.
Thank you very much, Minister.
And of course, I'm happy to join my illustrious friend, Mr. Paul Chung.
Thank you. I'm sure, Paul, it gives Paul great pleasure also to be here. Paul, this is the second time I'm hosting you on this program, and it's a pleasure to have you once again in your capacity as chairman of many distinguished organizations in Guyana, including, of course, but not limited to the Guyana Oil Company, the Borbis Bridge Corporation, the Private Sector Commission, and of course, you bring with you your decades of experience at the executive level in the private sector. Thank you very much, Paul, for being here and accepting the invitation this evening. So, Paul, you're on mute.
Yeah. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes. All right, fantastic. Yes, gentlemen. So it gives me great pleasure here this evening. As you know, we are at a point in Guyana where essentially we are recovering from what has been a very tumultuous period in the political economy in Guyana, and we have actually in Guyana been faced with a double whammy of having the crisis last year, GCOM 20, and also compounded by COVID-19. And of course, coming out of this economic malaise that we found ourselves, where the economy, the non-oil economy, contracted by almost 7.5%. We now are faced with the uphill task of driving vaccinations forward against the COVID-19 pandemic, and also ensuring that we drive economic recovery. Now, a very common manner in which economic recovery is driven is through public works programs and such like. And in particular as it relates to construction and infrastructure development. So, of course, Bishop Edge Hill, Minister of Public Works, is tasked and charged with that responsibility. So, Minister, would like to start us off this evening with an overview of the intended policy aims and objectives as it relates to government infrastructure over the next 5 years or during the 5-year term that the administration has been elected for?
Well, it's no secret that the Irfanali-led administration is focusing on modernizing Guyana and transforming Guyana into a place that we all could be proud of. We want to ensure that we lift Guyana out of poverty. We create opportunities for all. We develop Guyana in every region We ensure that there is no distinction between rural and urban or hinterland, and that we bring about the kind of holistic development that will see all of the various sectors growing. Even with the advent of oil and gas, we are paying attention to agriculture, mining, tourism, particularly with our brand of ecotourism, manufacturing, agro-processing, information communication technology, forestry. So we want to be able to build a multi-sector economy and not an oil-dependent economy. So because that is our overall and overarching vision, we have to be able to put the infrastructure in place to ensure that we could get lands open for the expansion of agriculture, which would mean new roads to get into new areas, because we want to ensure housing is affordable. We have to be able to provide the infrastructure to move Guyanese from just living in a cluster along the coastline and opening up new development areas. Because we want to ensure that our children have access to education. Universal primary education is already achieved. We want to now do universal secondary education. We don't just want to be able to build the schools, but people must be able to get to school, get back home. Because we want to ensure that our mining sector grow and develop, hinterland roads, airstrips, seaports, to be able to move people, goods, and services in and out of the interior is a matter of a priority. Because we are moving towards tourism with our brand of ecotourism, people have to be able to get to the lodges, get back to the main center, whether by way of road or by way of aircraft. Because Guyana is strategically positioned as a conduit of linking the Caribbean and South America, we must be able to get access into Brazil. So we have to build that road from Linden to Lethem. We must be able to get access to Suriname. So we have to build that bridge across the Corentyne River to join Suriname into French Guyana, into other parts of Brazil. We must be able to put in place the infrastructure that flights from the Caribbean must be able to come to Guyana, and we must be able to get them into South America or the long hauls out of Guyana into the Far East, into Europe. So whether it's air, road, or water, we have to be able to create that kind of an infrastructure to link our people and to ensure development is taking place in all sectors. So in the modernization of Guyana, we have to do two things. One, we have to improve what is already there. So roads that were 2 lanes, we now have to move them into 4 lanes or possibly 6 lanes. Where there were no roads, we have to now build new roads. Airstrips and aerodromes that were there, we have to move them from just merely laterite or loom or some other form and bring them up to international standards with asphaltic concrete. Our ocean-going vessels, we have to be able to make them more comfortable, faster, with great accessibility. The connection between the east side and the west side by way of the Demerara Harbor Bridge, which is an age-old bridge, we have to be able to make that more buoyant and doable. And one way in which we plan to do that is by building a new 4-lane asphaltic concrete high-span bridge, which would mean that the troubles of opening and closing for marine traffic, which affects vehicular traffic, will come to an end. Both must be able to take place simultaneously. We have to be able to allow for our harbors to accommodate bigger ships, more ships. So we have to talk about dredging. We have to talk about deep water harbor. We have to talk about facilities to accommodate oil and gas, which is shore-based development. So it's a number of things that have to happen simultaneously. So in essence, we have to improve what was there, and then we have to be able to build new things and do quite a lot of other things. So that's where we are in the modernization of Guyana and transforming it into a country that will be prosperous.
Right, certainly. Thank you for
Mr. Rembrandt, are you there? We're just going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Right.
Are you ready for the first ever Travespan Curry Duck Curry competition in Punta Cana, DR, along with cricket and Tassa, brought to you by Travespan, allforonesupplier.com, Dave's West Indian and Abby Tunes Radio. Your all-inclusive getaway includes non-stop flights, 4 nights hotel, resort services, unlimited food, drinks, and exciting live entertainment, including Tassa, Marissa, DJ Sean, Randy, NRTG, and me, Terry G, the Bangali Babu, alongside surprise guest performers. Call Travespan 212-243-0865 or book online at travespan.com. Punta Cana, Dokore, Punta Cana, Corridor, get on fire!
Allfromonesupplier.com has all your grocery needs, plus all of your West Indian items. Purchase all your groceries and all your West Indian items from one place and get free delivery to your homes and free shipping. Allfromonesupplier.com has free deliveries locally in New York and free shipping to all US states. Our shoppers choose the best items, packaged nicely, and delivered to your home. We have all your grocery needs and all your West Indian items, a one-stop shop. So place all your orders on allforonesupplier.com or call 718-551-3292. That's online at allfromonesupplier.com or call 718-551-3292. Get all your groceries and all your West Indian items from allfromonesupplier.com with free deliveries and free shipping to all US states.
Thank you very much for staying with us, viewers and listeners. We had a very good overview of the general policy direction and the purpose regarding the infrastructure development by the Minister of Public Works, Mr. Bishop Edgehill. Now, Paul, of course, you hold a very key role in the private sector, and infrastructure development often is done with the private sector in mind. Now, Bishop Edgehill has rightly pointed out a number of projects and general infrastructure development, which will aid the private sector in its development. Now, Paul, over the 5 years, what are some of the key projects that the private sector is looking forward towards that has perhaps been promised by this administration, which really will spur growth along? I think you're on mute, Paul.
Check from your end. I think, yeah, go ahead. You got me there?
Right.
Yeah,
Yes, go ahead.
Guyana, as we all know, I mean, in terms of infrastructure development, we're in a deficit. And one key example, I think yesterday, we had some problems at the Demerara Harbor Bridge. And there were a huge buildup of traffic both on the West Demerara side and the east bank of the Demerara end of the bridge. And you know, the amount of man hours a country like Ghana with a small working population, relatively, I mean, we lose a lot of man hours, and hence opportunity for development, opportunity for people to add, to contribute to the development of the country is minimized because of the long hours people take to commute to and from work, particularly on the West Demerara end. So definitely, you know, projects like the new Demerara Harbor Bridge would be a transformative project. I would add a lot of value to Guyana development, because I mean more lands, I mean, you know, would be open up. People, you know, would want to go and live on the West Demerara. The traffic impediment would no longer be a problem. So it will be you're able to take also, I mean, goods and services much more easier to places. It will reduce your costs. I mean, every time you have to, I mean, you're stuck in the line is a cost, because you know you're wasting fuel, you're wasting time. So it would improve efficiency, and again it would help to reduce the cost of doing business. There are a number of areas. I mean, as the private sector don't only deal with large businesses, but we also have agriculture as part of our mandate, you know, and farm to market roads are critical. I mean, particularly with the these climatic conditions we're experiencing, you know, the ability for the people to bring out their produce in a good state is very challenging when you have bad roads, and all of those things would add more value. We know, you know, we have oil, but agriculture would be the sustainable way to develop our country, and building roads in those agriculture area would help to reduce the farmers' costs, would help to reduce the cost of the product that consumer pay for. Right now, we've seen in the marketplace how vegetables prices have skyrocketed. That's because of a limited supply, and we can go into that a little later on in the program. But I mean, proper roads, proper infrastructure, proper drainage, it would all aid. I mean, the business climate, it will all reduce costs of production and make things better for the consumer and the business sector. Thank you.
Right, definitely, Paul, because when you take, for example, the inundation of rains and the impact that has on the commercial sector, and the inability of persons to perhaps walk and shop and so on during the points in time when heavy rainfall occurs. That, of course, has its own impact on the rate of turnover for these enterprises and consequently affects the private sector. Minister, I know some key projects that the government is embarking on will certainly help to aid in the traffic situation which we currently see in Guyana. And we know that two of the most critical projects that the administration is embarking on, those projects are the Diamond Bypass Road, if you will, quote unquote, and the new Demerara, or the new bridge across the Demerara River. I know that many persons, when they saw the flyer and so on come out, they asked me to, as the moderator, ask you what the progress is regarding those two projects, because I know that this is one that persons are greatly anticipating.
Well, let me start first with the new 4-lane road, Ogle to Eccles, Eccles to Diamond, Diamond to Tamiri, because that's the project. It's linking our two international airports. We have $50 million from the government of India for the executing of this project. We have already pre-qualified 4 contractors through the procurement process, and they are now at the stage of putting in their bids, which is their price bids, for the first phase of that project. We should have a contract to begin works in the last quarter of 2021. And that's building from Ogle to Eccles. Right now, through the Ministry of Housing, a 4-lane road passing through the housing areas from Diamond all the way down to Mandela Avenue is being constructed. Sheriff Mandela is under construction. We are doing an upgrade on one section and then moving to 4 lanes in the other section. That 4-lane road coming through the housing areas, Diamond all the way to Mandela Avenue, would connect with Sheriff Mandela. It will mean that persons who are going home from work don't need to go on the East Bank, but they could just divert, collect that 4-lane, and they exit, whether they're living in Eccles or Nandi Park or Mocha or Farm, and you get all the way to Diamond. So you don't have to be on that corridor that is known right now as the East Bank Road. We're adding to that a new road linking Ogle all the way to Tamiri. That is opening up new lands for housing, for businesses, for agriculture, and of course, cutting travel time. Paul was talking about that just now when he spoke about what transpired yesterday at the Demerara Harbor Bridge. And it wasn't that something went wrong with the bridge. It was just a barge with stone that took longer to transit because of some complications they were having. But one barge with stones held up thousands of Guyanese from getting on with business and life in general. So what we are doing, we are building a high-span bridge, which is going to be about 56 meters above the level of the river. 56 meters, I'm told it will be higher than the Marriott Hotel at the high span. It means that that's the end of opening and closing of a bridge. It's a fixed bridge, concrete, high span, ships going, trucks, vehicles, haulers. It could take the tonnage, it could take the weight, and it's going to be 4 lanes. Now, with that bridge, we are connecting it with that 4-lane road that I just spoke about, which is going to be coming out of Ogle, heading to Diamond onto Tamiri on the east side. But on the west side, that bridge will be connected with a new road, a new 4-lane road that begins at Schoonard and goes all the way to Parika. So the studies, the alignment, the design of that road is active as I speak tonight. We have monies in the budget 2021 to do the debushing and to actually create the alignment. And we are looking to mobilize resources to start full construction of that road. So that is adding 4 more lanes of road to what already exists on the West Coast with that upgraded road that was built. When we left office, it was being completed in 2015. When you reach the Perica, we have to deal with onward from Perica. So we're doing the Del Conte Road, which will take you all the way to Perica, into the vicinity of just past Macaura, which will be able to link Region 3 with the Region 7. And then we're doing another road, linking Region 7 directly with Region 4, Bartica to Soesdijk. So rather than having to drive to the Perica Stelling to get a boat, to pack some cargo on it, and of course you are limited with a speedboat, you'll be able to pack your truck, your hauler, and move directly out of the center, cross at Soesdijk, and in 3-4 hours, you are in Bartica. And Bartica is the gateway to the interior, so the fuel supplies for the miners, their pumps, their equipment, their ration and everything. It's accelerating development. Now, this kind of a development is structured, it is strategic, and it is well planned. Now let's go to what we're doing to link the coastline with the hinterland. We are currently going to begin work on the current Linden-Soesdijk Highway. We have just awarded a contract, some in the vicinity of $150 million, to start some work on that. But while we are doing that and upgrading the Linden-Soesdijk Highway, we are starting the first phase of the project, linking Linden with Lethem, with funding from the Caribbean Development Bank and the United Kingdom Caribbean Investment Fund, which is called the UK CIF. We will be building
Mr. Edgel, are you there?
Seems like we lost Minister.
You want to continue, Mr. Ramaran, and he should join back very shortly.
Yeah. I think let's continue. So, Paul, of course, we have been talking here with Minister Edgel, and he's been giving us a very good update on the progress of these major infrastructure projects. One of the key things regarding this, Paul, is that when these projects come on stream, there will be broader economic benefits that will accrue to the country. I think we have Minister back on here. Minister, are you hearing us clearly?
Reliability for our ICT sector. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yes, we're hearing you clearly now.
Yes, I got completely hit off. and this is part of what we have to also talk about, improving our ICT infrastructure. We must be able to have more bandwidth, cheaper bandwidth, and more reliable connectivity. So this is something that we have to work on.
Absolutely.
So I'm saying to you that with the Linden to Lethem Road, Guyanese farmers, Paul Chung and the private sector have a market just in northern Brazil of 20 million. So they are moving from 750 or 800,000 market in Guyana. And by just that one road, their access is to a 20 million person market in northern Brazil, just in northern Brazil, not the whole of Brazil, just northern Brazil. We already have the Takatu Bridge. That road is to be linked with a deep water harbor, which we plan to build out of Berbice in the Crab Island area, which means we could see larger ships, containerized movement of goods, because Brazil is such a landlocked country. It takes about 5 to 7 days just to go through the Amazonia to get out into the ocean. Bringing goods into Guyana and shipping it into northern Brazil is a journey that could take 18 hours, maybe 24 hours to get the goods that will take 7 days from one point at Brazil down to northern Brazil. So with a deep water harbor in Guyana, Guyana will become a hub for trade. But then the farmer at Purica could load his canter of plantains, pumpkins, and peppers, and he can drive all the way into Brazil. And in 3 days, he's back home and his wife is happy. With the building of the Quarantine River Bridge, the farmer coming out of Hubu or Luluni can drive all the way into Suriname, sell their produce. So you're creating new markets. You're creating greater economic opportunities. So the networks that we're talking about and the infrastructure that we are putting in place is not just to say when Guyanese come home, the country looking nice, but it creates real opportunities for the economic advancement of our people, for greater access to markets, to trade, for the expansion of sectors, and everything will grow. So the road links, the bridges that we are doing is to be able to ensure that. And just think about it. Somebody who is in the interior and needs tertiary level medical attention, because the intent of the government is to ensure that we have primary health care accessible everywhere across the country. With a good road, people could live in the interior comfortably because they know their healthcare issues is just a matter of hours away. You could drive and get to a good hospital. Schooling, it will help family life. People now, when they go to the interior, they come back after 3 months, 4 months. With good roads, people could work and in a fortnight come home, get back to work. With airstrips that we could lay out, that flights that on an economy of scale could carry down the fares, could traverse, we could be able to see greater movement of people. So like I've been saying, it's a holistic development of modernizing our infrastructure, catapult Guyana's development and modernizing our country.
Absolutely, Minister. One of the things that's always struck me about this program of development is that there seems to be great, what is called complementarity of the projects. One project being able to complement another, being tied or linked to another, and it's being sequenced and phased in a manner that will drive broader economic development. And those who perhaps understand development or who are interested in how countries develop, building a road is not simply just about building a road. Once you structure the development of the projects correctly, you can benefit from agricultural development. You do spur private sector activities forward. You do create employment through the economic benefit that occurs in a wider sense. Minister, one of the other projects that I know, of course, is key and is a main artery, and you touched on it very briefly, is that Sheriff Mandela project that is currently ongoing. Of course, we've seen that project go through a number of stop-starts, and it's been going on for quite some time. When are we projected to finish that key piece of infrastructure?
Well, it is interesting that you are asking that question, because just before I started this program with you at 7 o'clock, I left the meeting with the project team, the contractor, and the consultants examining that very same question that you're asking. The project is to be, the contract is supposed to be completed by August 4th. 2021. We may have to go beyond. You know, we've had a tremendous challenge with weather patterns here of recent, and that seems not to be changing in a hurry. So you can do paving of the road with water on the road and rain falling. So there are some delays, but I want to ensure as minister that those delays must be realistic to compensate for time lost and not lawlessness or carelessness or improper contract management. So just this afternoon, I had a meeting with the entire project team, which means my engineers from the Ministry of Public Works, the contractor, as well as the supervisory consultants to discuss the very same issue. We want to be able to deliver this project as soon as possible. I think we are somewhere in the vicinity of 70% complete. Work should be picking up based upon the instructions that I have given, and we're going to get this in sooner rather than later. But I can't help but say, when we came to office August last year, nothing was happening on Sheriff Mandela. Absolutely nothing. Zero. We have moved from zero to having 9 subcontractors on 19 sites, accelerating the work. Much of what needed to be done in terms of the drains and the road widening and so on has gotten out of the way. There are some other things to be done, and we have started putting on what you might want to call the first lift of paving, and then we have to come back through the entire road with the second lift. The roundabout at David Street is moving apace, and we just got to get this road done. It's going to be a couple of months, so we're going to have it. I'm determined to ensure that we took this project at what might be best described as a failed project and make it a success, because it is almost the same thing we had to do with the airport, the Cherry Jagan International Airport. We had to take that as a failed project, going nowhere, spending more, getting less, work with the contractors, give specific instructions, and move it to the next level. And I learned from what you were saying just now about how we sequence these projects and how we ensure that it has benefits. The Cherry Jagan International Airport was not a standalone project. When we thought about Ghana's next wave of development and developing of the agricultural sector, we needed to be able to get our other crops to destinations at a cheaper rate and in a more reliable manner, which means we needed to bring bigger aircraft into Guyana to carry out our peppers and our belange and our Coraili and all the other things that people look forward for in the North American market and the European market, and we needed to be able to have greater freight capacity. When we talked about tourism, the airport was also tied with the Marriott Hotel, getting a branded hotel in Guyana to ensure that Guyana could become a tourist destination. The development of Ogle International Airport was tied in with us building a new CARICOM headquarters in Guyana, the International Conference Center, to make Guyana a convention destination, and that will mean the building of other hotels. So apart from just pleasure tourism, we must be able to make Guyana a convention destination. We must have a stock of rooms. We must be able to bring big conferences to Guyana. You have to have an airport. You have to have a road network. You have to have the support infrastructure to facilitate that. So these things were all tied in to that kind of a holistic development. So we don't just want a nicer airport. We want a longer runway that could take in the huge aircraft to be able to deal with our freight situation, to move our crops and other produce out of Guyana at a cheaper, faster, and more reliable way. We wanted to ensure that we have an airport that could accommodate in transit facilities, that Guyana could become a hub of aviation traffic into South America, into the Caribbean, doing the long hauls. Guyana must be a preferred stop for long hauls, going into South Africa and other parts of Africa. They must come here, make their stops, and continue. That is the kind of thinking that was put into these kinds of projects. But sadly, over the last period that the APNU AFC held office, because they did not have the understanding or the appreciation of how you develop a country, they saw these things as just building an airport or building a road, and they did not understand the necessity. If you could cut travel time of a man heading to the international airport from the quarantine, by him being able to bypass that traffic in Georgetown, and he could save an hour, he could do a lot more the day before he travels, just by saving that 1 hour. His family, who may want to accompany him to the airport, could do a lot more. When you arrive in Guyana, to get to your destination faster, because you could bypass all of that traffic. So the design of our projects are with people in mind, their comfort, ensuring their well-being, ensuring prosperity, ensuring that we could earn more, the economic viability of what we're doing becomes more pronounced, and the enlargement and expansion of what exists. So it is carefully thought out, and it is based upon a strategy that could only see us going forward.
I certainly am appreciative of that point, and you certainly do see the broader economic benefits beginning to already accrue. I see someone in our comment box who is watching the program saying saving travel time is like money in the bank, and I certainly think that that is a very important point. So, Minister, as we're on the point of discussing, infrastructure and talking, we touched a bit on what the torrential rainfalls have done in terms of the project schedule for the Mandela, the Sheriff Mandela Road. What plans are in place by the government over the next few years in terms of climate resilient infrastructure? Are there plans to perhaps move some housing developments further inland? Is there plans for infrastructure to cater for torrential rainfall? Of course, I know that the administration does have a focus on low carbon and low carbon development. So within this context, as it relates to climate resilient infrastructure, what is the vision of the administration?
Well, every Guyanese who recognized the kind of rainfall that we would have had over the last several months and what is taking place, all of the rivers in our country are overflowing their banks. That's why we're having flooding in all of the areas. But despite of that, the coast, the East Coast and Georgetown, is not flooded. You know why? The PPPC government made a decision to build the Hope Canal. Hadn't we had the Hope Canal, we would not have only been hearing about flooding in the interior. We would be hearing about flooding in the East Coast, Georgetown, and possibly sections of the East Bank, to the likes of 205 and 206. Why I use that to say that while we are conscious that we are a country that is below sea level, most of our people live in the coastal plain, we have vulnerabilities, we depend upon the gravity flow through our cocos and sluices for the draining of the land, and we've installed pumps and all the rest of it. We're advancing initiatives to ensure that in the event of disaster and the excesses that exist, we can manage. You know, despite of the massive neglect and incompetence that you find at the Georgetown City Council, and sorry that I have to say that, but it's the fact and I have to speak the truth. Georgetown has been largely saved, not because of anything City Hall would have done, but because of what central government would have done. Last December, the Air Finale-led administration spent about $350 million by putting in place community projects to desilt all of those drains and tunnels to ensure that when rainfall comes, the siltation in the drains are not in a manner that creates flooding, but we have taken away the silt to ensure that the drains could hold the water. The other day when we had flooding in Georgetown, it was because the pump attendants were asleep. Apart from the cocos and cleaning up the drains, we have invested significant sums to buy pumps so that should the tide be high and the coco can be open, we have the pumps to pump the water out. But you have this sabotage and the unwillingness of people to change their culture that creates difficulties. But one of the things that we're definitely doing, we have to ensure that our culverts and our bridges now are no longer wood. Wood can't take the pressure. I was in Landersville, down the Berbice River, last Saturday with Prime Minister and Minister Sonia Parag. And our cameraman could have been swept away. We're on land in a housing area, and the flow of the water was so strong because of rain that he tried to cross and the water was almost taking him away. So could you imagine that kind of pressure on a wooden bridge? So we've had a number of bridges that got damaged and roads that were displaced and that we have to repair by way of emergency in the first instance to ensure that supplies could continue to move across the country. Last week I met with a group of truckers. You know what is their problem? They can't cross the rivers because the pontoons there's nowhere to land the pontoons because the roads that lead to these landings are flooded and the pontoons can't get there, and the water is too high for the trucks to traverse. So we have to be able to look at all of these things. So in our building of roads, aerodromes, drainage, the issue of climate change, tracking data, understanding the phenomena and cycles that come so many 100 years or 50 years, because like what is happening in Kokwani right now, water almost 15 feet high. That is a phenomena that was there 30 something years ago. We have to start moving people who live right alongside of the river. It is all well and good because you have easy access, you could land your boat, get in there, but we got to start moving people to higher ground and understanding that while this may be good for a temporary long term, you can't build a future there. Our president is also talking about building a new city, and he's very serious about it. You know, he has completed his PhD in urban planning, and he's been using that expertise, and he's talking about a new city, and that is going into the highlands, somewhere in the vicinity on the Linden-Soesdijk Highway. So we gotta be able to start thinking in those directions. Cash crop farmers, rice farmers, cane farmers, they all have to understand that we're doing business in a particular environment. So the empoldering, the drainage and irrigation canals cannot be blocked with boats and other encumbrances, and we got to manage in a holistic manner. So the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, the Minister of Agriculture has been doing a fantastic job working with the various water users association, getting the farmers co-ops together to bring them into certain understandings that the action of one could affect the action of so many others. So let us do things in a structured way, and we're getting there. And while we are building and we are putting in place new infrastructure, we have to ensure that our designs as well as our actual construction can stand that kind of a pressure. So our sea defenses, our river defenses, which is part of my remit and what we're looking at, must take into consideration all of that. And I'm happy to report that with all that has been happening with the high tides and the spring tide and the rainfall, our sea defenses have stood up. In the Pomeroon River, we have some problems. We have to do some empoldering and so on there. But by and large, with the kinds of interventions and initiatives that have been made, we have held our own where it comes to sea and river defenses.
Thank you, Minister, for that. I think looking at the level of rainfall that Guyana is faced with currently, we can say that this is perhaps a good stress test on the infrastructure currently in the country. And we're seeing that though there are some issues existing in certain places, by and large in the urban environments, we are able to manage and withstand to an extent. Now, I do know that there is flooding in some particular areas, and Paul, you at the private sector, from the Private Sector Commission's vantage point, I know that you guys have been working to get some relief out. You've been working collaboratively with the CDC and such like, and member BSOs and corporations. You perhaps want to shed some light on some of that relief work that through the Private Sector Commission you're coordinating? think you muted there, Paul.
Yes. What we've seen over the past few weeks in terms of rainfall, I mean, it's unprecedented. I mean, I've been reading since 1892, we've had this amount of rainfall in the month of June. So, you know, and it's not only in Guyana, I mean, we've seen in Suriname, in Venezuela, in Brazil. I mean, it's stinging. The capacity for our drainage system to take off that amount of intense rainfall is very difficult, particularly when you're below sea level. I know we have pumps, but we have to relook at all of those as a country. We look at our pumps and see if we have to put in larger pumps and so on. And Minister Edgell spoke about the Hope Canal, but I know the other conservancy and water area, we need to do similar exercise to prevent flooding in those areas. I mean, to get the water to the river faster from those water-bearing areas. Yes, but I mean, this is a national disaster, and indeed, all Guyana, I mean, of which the private sector is a part, is required to play a hand, because to get our people out through this dilemma. We've been working, as you rightly said, with the CDC. We've been working also in the different region with the regional administrations and with the local government areas to help with providing equipment to help clear drains, even outfalls. We've private sector organization have provided equipment to help clear some outfalls. So we have been helping to transport and take flood relief items to areas that people are suffering. We've worked with other the private sector companies to give products that can form part of the package to relieve persons who are suffering also. And yes, we're playing our part. We've been going around assessing, we've been helping to distribute hamper, we've been helping to take feed to animals that are stranded in some of those areas, because not only people are affected, a lot of livestock also. I mean, animals, they feed on grass, cows and so on. And I mean, when they place a flood, there's no grass for them to eat. And we've been helping in whatever way we can in those things. Going back, I know Minister took up a big chunk of this program today, and I mean, we have so much to talk about in terms of infrastructure. From a private sector perspective, I think the private sector is anxiously awaiting, these projects to come to fruition, and even through them, you have a lot of spin-offs by creating employment. I mean, the money circulating in the economy would help businesses. I mean, to grow and develop. So, I mean, when these projects come on stream, we talk about the roads and so on, it would reduce freight rates. When the Deepwater Harbor come on stream, at the previous program, I did talk about one of the hindrances to businesses, which is the cost of freight, bringing in products to Guyana and taking it out. When you have a Deepwater Harbor and we can leverage with the products coming from Brazil, definitely larger ships would be able to come here and able to take our rates down. Businesses, products will become more competitive in the international market, whether it's the region or for the field. So all that goes well for the private sector, and I mean, we're happy, and I know under Minister Edgell's portfolio also is the electricity. And electricity rates with some of the things, the hydro and the gas to shore project, bringing along the rates of electricity. The private sector anxiously await those development transformative projects, which goes well for the country as a whole. because as we get more competitive, we are able to create more jobs, more higher paying jobs, and as I said, all the country would be in a better position. So we're in an exciting period in the country's development, and we need to ensure that we work together and get this done in a timely and efficient manner. Thank you.
Absolutely, Paul. I certainly echo your sentiments there, and I know that we have seemingly covered quite a bit over the past 1 hour or so that we have been chatting. I am here, of course, with none other than Minister Ed Hill, Minister of Public Works. I'm also here with Paul Chung, in his capacity chairman for several private sector enterprises and the Private Sector Commission in Guyana. So, Mr. Back End guy, Devin, would you perhaps want to take us on a break as we are beginning to approach our second segment of the program?
You can now have all your groceries delivered to your home. Allfromonesupplier.com has all your grocery needs, plus all of your West Indian items. Purchase all your groceries and all your West Indian items from one place and get free delivery to your homes and free shipping. Allfromonesupplier.com has free deliveries locally in New York and free shipping to all U.S. states. Our shoppers choose the best items packaged nicely and delivered to your home. We have all your grocery needs and all your West Indian items, a one-stop shop. So place all your orders on allfromonesupplier.com or call 718-551-3292. That's online at allfromonesupplier.com or call 718-551-3292. Get all your groceries and all your West Indian items from allfromonesupplier.com with free deliveries and free shipping to all U.S. states. Globespan 24x7 continues its Travelspan is pleased to announce Curry Duck Curry Punta Cana 2021. Yep, it's Travelspan Curry Duck Curry with an inclusive vacation, 2-in-1 on August 12th to August 16th. Special performances by Terry Godraj, Sexy Marissa, the Tassa Men, and the DJs are all going to Punta Cana on August 12th to August 16th. It's fun, games, party, and curry duck curry at VIK All-Inclusive Resort. All you can eat and all you can drink. Travelspan has flights from JFK, Newark, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, and Houston directly to Punta Cana. It's Travelspan Curry Duck Curry, and an all-inclusive vacation. It's 2-in-1 on August 12th to August 16th in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. All-inclusive packages include air, hotel, transfers, all meals and drinks from $9.99 persons. Travelspan Curry Duck Curry is sponsored by allfromonesupplier.com. Dave West Indian. Call Travelspan at 212-243-0865. That's Travelspan at 212-243-0865. Or book on travelspan.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our program here this evening. I have, of course, here with me Minister Ed Hill, Minister of Public Works, and I also have with me Mr. Paul Chung, Chairman of the Private Sector Commission. Of course, we cannot do these programs these days and not touch a bit on something that remains very topical within the global context, and that is, of course, COVID and the entire pandemic and what has been happening. So, Minister, of course, you are a member of parliament and you are also a member of a political party. And I've seen in the public domain, this is a bit outside infrastructure improvements and flood relief, the topic. But I'm sure that the viewers and listeners would like for someone of your stature to address this. I've seen in the public domain much being spoken about the government and the government procurement of vaccines above what is being called, what the WHO, they say, has priced, quote unquote, the vaccine for at $10 US or something along that line. It's certainly something relevant, and I see a lot of questions and comments being made on that. So certainly if you can perhaps articulate the government's position or the party's position on this matter, I would greatly appreciate it.
Well, the first thing I would want to mention is that anyone who is criticizing the government's vaccines program, what they're basically doing is admiring our success. Guyana, in the Caribbean, we are leading where vaccination is concerned. Trinidad, the Prime Minister had to come out and accept responsibility and practically apologize for what was taking place in Trinidad. The Irfan Ali-led administration, from the time we took office, COVID and mitigation, dealing with the issues were priorities. We set up a task force, which was headed by the Prime Minister, Brigadier Retired Mark Phillips, and Dr. Frank Anthony is the Minister of Health. And we have been looking at all that needs to be done, starting with number one, improving testing. You know, APNU AFC would want to say that COVID is creating havoc in Guyana because they're admiring our successes. But they weren't doing testing. So if you test 6 people and 1 is positive, you'll say that's 1 positive. But you know how much testing we're doing per day right now? What we're doing in terms of testing per day is more than what the APNU AFC did in terms of testing for months while they were illegally holding on to power. The only way you could deal with this thing, you have to first of all deal with testing. So we improve testing, put in place procurement of the PPEs, distribution of masks, ensuring the sanitization of facilities, ensuring that the work environment was one that was free from an environment of spreading the disease, putting people in rotation. And from the time vaccinations or vaccines became available, vaccination was our number 1 priority. President Ali himself, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Health, led the discussions with various entities, countries concerning access to vaccination. Just a few days ago, the Minister of Health stood up in Parliament and explained to the whole country, the whole world, we spoke to Pfizer, we spoke to Moderna. You know, they said when we could get vaccines, 2022. 2022. The COVAX machinery or facility made certain commitments, but that would only take charge of about 10 to 20% of our population. We went out in an environment where there was vaccine scarcity. And we have been able to procure vaccines for every Guyanese 18 years and above. And that is a success story. Our senior citizens, 60 years and above, have the highest rating of vaccination in the Americas. This is like throwing a damn squib on something that is good. It's almost like what is happening with the government's swift, aggressive, and laudable response to the flood. The ministers got out there in every community, ensured that people had food, shelters were open, life and livelihood was preserved. And what is the opposition's position on that? They're commenting that somebody didn't get a hamper. You pass on the street and somebody didn't get a hamper. They're not talking about the tens of thousands of people who had to be reached out to. Some had to be evacuated from their homes. Shelters had to be opened. So this commentary that is running is coming straight from the belly of the beast, the opposition in Guyana, and they are accustomed to spinning narratives or providing alternative truths, or well, it can be alternative truths, alternative facts, which are basically lies, propaganda, and misinformation. We went out in an environment where vaccines were short, and we got access through dealers, particularly for the Sputnik V, which I believe is what they want to attack. And of course, the whisper campaigns that they were carrying on in the first instance was one that was an anti-vaccination approach. But when they realized that COVID don't look at race, religion, or political affiliation, they have lately come on board encouraging people to get vaccinated. But they still are in their opposition mode of creating misinformation by now saying there's some scandal. We have gone to the National Assembly. We have declared the amount of monies that have been spent. We have declared how many vaccines are being procured and from where. So everything is known. This is just misinformation for the vulnerable to gain some kind of political advantage, but it will not succeed. The fact of the matter is, other countries of the Caribbean are admiring Guyana and its vaccination program in this COVID-19 environment. The fact of the matter is that every Guyanese 18 years and over could walk into a health facility and get both doses of their vaccines. We started off by receiving donations, whether it was AstraZeneca that came from India or Sinopharm that came from China. But then we had to get out and buy because the donations was just a drop in the bucket. We have just procured 100,000 doses of Sinopharm and 200,000 more doses of Sputnik V. These things cost money. And I think when the leader of the opposition tried to make or to cast doubt about our success by asking certain questions in the National Assembly, it was given fodder to the propaganda mill for them to start churning out this kind of a misinformation. So if somebody comes to you and say, look, the government should not have bought the vaccines for $15 or $16 because we heard that you could get it for $10. But the market and the availability of the vaccines on the market were not there. What they're saying that the government of Ghana should have waited until 2022, 2023, when there is enough supply of vaccines that could be bought for $10 to start vaccinating our people. We put our people first. And every Guyanese listening to me tonight should know that. This government, we put people first. And because we value the lives of our people, we went out there and got vaccines for all of our people. 2 doses. so that they could receive those doses. And I believe every right-thinking, rational, reasonable Guyanese would understand what the government did, why they did it, because they recognized it was in the interest of all the people of Guyana. And there is no scandal, there's no skullduggery, there's no inflation of prices. Ask other countries' prime ministers and presidents if they got the deal that Guyana got. So that would be that would be my take on it right now. It's just admiring us awkwardly.
Thank you very much for that, Minister. I think one of the things, if persons are perhaps following some of the international narratives, etc., they would know that there is a new talk globally about something called vaccine inequity and persons being unable to access. But when you look at what's happening here in Guyana, we don't have any of that vaccine inequity happening. You actually said, Minister, and anyone can see that any person, irrespective of what, can walk into one of these facilities, can ride into one of these facilities, could drive into one of these facilities, and have access to world-class vaccinations. In some countries around the world, persons have had to fly out. Those who had money and can afford it had to fly out to go to other countries to be vaccinated. And so in that regard, I think that the public health effort is one that is very commendable and one certainly that is in the interest of all Guyanese. So I know we have here a gentleman on, Mr. Mahadio, who is going to share with us some of the work which is being done in the diaspora at this time, not only in light of not only contributing to the discussion this evening on COVID-19 and the state of COVID-19 in the diaspora, but also the diaspora's contribution at this time and what efforts are being made for flood relief from the diaspora. So, Mr. Mahadio, welcome, and if you perhaps would like to give a short presentation on scene.
Well, I thank you again very much for the opportunity, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity for Globespan to use this opportunity also to let the diaspora know about what is happening here, especially in Richmond Hill and South Ozone Park.
Sure. Okay, Mr. Mahadio, go ahead.
Well, as it, New York City has been managing the COVID rates, and Richmond Hill had gone from 16.43%. We're down to a small number of 3.1%. However, in as much we are 3.1%, New York City as a whole is about 0.3%. So I'm focusing on the city to bring more resources into Richmond Hill and South Ozone Park, because we need to get more places where we can get tested, where we can get vaccination, and more PPEs to be distributed into our community. So these are some of the issues that I'm working on with the governor's office and the mayor's office and Senator Sanders' office to make the difference.
Right, Mr. Mahadio, thank you for that. Additionally, is there anything happening in the diaspora at this time in terms of coordination for flood relief here in Guyana? You know, we've had some torrential rainfall and some areas have seen massive amounts of flooding.
Well, I must say we have been able to donate more than 30,000 masks and sanitizers to the government of Guyana over the last 2 months. And right now, the Sri Lakshmi Narayan Mandir with Rishi Prasad, we are putting a 40-foot container to be shipped to Guyana sometime at the end of this week or early next week. This is going to be focusing on bringing as much help to Guyana and the flood victims. Outside of that, I'm making another donation of about 30,000 masks and to the CDC, to the Koban John Ashram, and also to some other organizations that are based in Guyana, because they are going to be the outreach, and we are also going to be giving it to the Minister of Agriculture, because he has been going out of his way to reach out to farmers who are most impacted from what is happening with the flood.
Right. Okay, Mr. Mahadio. Any other thing that you would like to add at this time as we begin to wrap up our program? Any other thing that you would want to add?
I would like the diaspora to know that whatever you would like to donate, we will be more than happy to collect it at the Sri Lakshmi Narayan Mandir, which is located at 2804 Liberty Avenue. But outside of that, we want the Guyana government to know that diaspora cares, and especially during this COVID crisis, we are here to help, and we will continue to be of help to the Guyana government. Outside of that, I must thank Globespan for reaching out to make a difference, especially in the program that we have here right now. And this is what I want to bring to your attention in terms of what we are doing.
Okay, Mr. Mahadio, thank you very much. So, of course, as we begin to wind down or wrap up our program here this evening, of course, we know the private sector in Guyana has been doing a fair bit in terms of assistance for the COVID relief and the COVID drive. If you follow, you would see that many of the private sector organizations are actually availing themselves, or private sector enterprises are availing themselves as vaccination drives to support. Even Movie Town, for example, this weekend had the drive-through and supporting government in its vaccination effort. Mr. Chong, do you want to perhaps give a very quick or a succinct overview of what the private sector has been doing to assist with this relief? I think you're on mute, Paul.
Do you hear me now? You hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I said,
yes,
I start by saying that COVID is a real problem, not only for Guyana, but globally. We've seen what it has done. And from day one, as good corporate citizen, I mean, the private sector has been involved in donating cloth to sew masks. I mean, that at the very early stages when masks weren't available, I mean, as it is now, you know, the private sector was involved in doing that. And also, I mean, when persons had to stay home, I mean, during this was a shutdown, we assisted, donated products to help give hamper. And even now, as you said, I mean, with the vaccine that is going on, we keep encouraging all Guyanese, not only our employees, to take up the vaccine. We've been, I mean, talk about the drive-through, but we've been taking the vaccination teams to different work sites to get persons vaccinated. And we you know, even for persons that are, don't want to get vaccinated. For a particular organization, we're reaching out to, we're working with the Ministry of Health to get doctors to go to those work sites to speak to those employees and to help mitigate some of the myths they might have in their minds so that they could go out and take the vaccine. I mean, taking the vaccine is a very important step in protecting yourself, family, and friends. So I want to, as chairman of the private sector corporation, to encourage all Guyanese who are eligible to take the vaccine to go out and take it. I mean, this COVID is a serious thing. It's not no myth, it's taken too many lives already, and we need to protect ourselves. I mean, I've heard that, and from the Minister of Health, that no one that have taken both shots timely have died as a result of the COVID, which is good information. So I mean, we if you want persons, I'm sure persons want to protect themselves from dying, they need to go out and get vaccinated. I think the government is doing an excellent job in acquiring the vaccines. So it is upon the population now, it's upon us to go and do our part and take the vaccine and protect ourselves. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Paul. So as we begin to wrap up, I'd like to invite Minister Jill, Minister, if you have any final remarks to provide to our viewers and listeners this evening. Of course, you're now invited to do so.
Well, thank you, and let me express deep appreciation to be able to share these moments with you and your viewers and listeners. Thank you for providing that platform and opportunity for me to do so. Guyana is not going to remain where she is. Guyana is moving. All of us have to be on board. So I give an invitation to all Guyanese for us to build the one Guyana that we're talking about. We're doing this for ourselves, our children, and our children's children. We have to ensure that we are strong enough, that we're not taken advantage of. That is why we're putting in place strong local content policies in as much as we're engaging foreign direct investments and international companies. We have to ensure that the best of us are available to lead the ship and to ensure that we make our skills and our talents available for the building of Guyana. So whether we are at home or abroad, we should be engaged. I think it's a time for maturity and responsibility, that the pettiness and the infantile politics we should bring to an end. We should look at the big picture about where we're going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. We must be world players. We must sit with dignity and with pride. Our Guyanese passport must mean something to us. We must fly it high because we must become a people of respect, or I should say greater respect. Because Guyanese do have respect around the world. We've had some blotches and some bad points. Lack of democracy was one of those blotches we've had. Jonestown was another one. But we could be known for other greater things, the low carbon development strategy, being a leader in climate change has been a bright spot. Our international diplomacy must earn us the reputation. Guyana is now known as a destination that you must visit for world travelers. Our hospitality is one that is second to none. We must be able to become innovators, producers, manufacturers, service providers. We must be kings in our own kingdom. We must not be servants and slaves. We must liberate ourselves, as Bob Marley would put it, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. We must think that we can do it. Our captains of business must be given the opportunity. Businesses must be incentivized. Our infrastructure must be modernized. Policies must be and our legislative agenda must be in sync and sensitive to the needs of our people. And let's build a country where freedom exists, where democracy thrives, and where prosperity is not something only for a few, but it's for all of us. So I invite all of us to participate in that process. Ideas, views, suggestions, and more importantly, collective action is what will bring us to that destination. Programs like this and contributions that will come from people in the private sector like Paul Chung, and persons making themselves available as nationalists and patriots to contribute is what will make the big difference. So I make that appeal. And in the midst of this global pandemic, I appeal to all my Guyanese brothers and sisters, go out and get vaccinated. We must achieve herd immunity. We must be able to open back up the country. It has been over 14 months, and it's difficult, but we have to be able to get out of this, and we got to do this together. We have a double whammy. We have the flooding. It's been 3 weeks and counting since we've had this flooding situation, and we got to reach out, be our brother's keeper, continue to help, but we want to appeal to all those who are in the danger zones. Please move to the shelters, move to higher grounds. There's no need to be bravado and think that you could manage it on your own. Every one of us need a shoulder sometimes to lean on. Your government is doing everything that it can do, will, and we can possibly do. As we reach out our hands to you, you have to reach out yours so we can get this done together. So this is a time for us to heal, reconcile, and build a future that is bright. And let's walk this path of progress together. Thank you for the opportunity of sharing with you tonight.
Thank you very much, Minister Edgehill. This has certainly been very informative, and also in your closing remarks, very inspiring for me as the moderator here, and of course as a Guyanese citizen, and I'm very sure for the wider populace here this evening that are listening and viewing. We're almost out of time, and of course I would like to, before we wrap up, perhaps ask Paul if he'd have any closing remarks that he would like to give. Any final words, Paul?
Yeah, very quickly, I would like to thank the Globespan organization and the team for allowing us the opportunity to reach out and to share on many these topical issues that are happening in Guyana and affecting Guyana at this particular point in time. And I want to, at the same time, re-echo, the importance of persons go out and get vaccinated. And I think all Guyanese, you need to latch on to this opportunity that we have as a country to really turn all our potential into reality, and to make Guyana closer and closer towards a developed country. I think it's right in front of us right now, but we all need to get on board and move Guyana in the right direction. And once we move together, sure, we can do it and make Guyana a great country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been about 90 minutes, 96 minutes that we've been chatting here this evening, and certainly we have tried our best to ensure we covered as many topics that we can. Of course, a special thank you to both Minister Edgehill as well as Paul Chung for being our guests this evening. It certainly has been very informative and very well received by our viewers and listeners. Ladies and gentlemen, as we're out of time, I would like to thank you all for joining us this evening, and I certainly look